This election had many firsts and many stories that will be told for generations.
I have a dream that one day
every man of color feared the Deep South. Your gross and heinous acts of brutality were common. Douglass was no different. In fact, on a normal summer day in 1838, as the sun unleashed its vicious rays on his whole body, Douglass felt the whip crash down on his stinging back. His sweat came in thick droplets that brushed his nose as it went down.
That very night, Douglass escaped. He struggled not to imagine the brutal tortures that would come if he was captured that night. After all his struggles as a slave, he wanted to make a change in history. He wanted to speak his voice in Pennsylvania. Douglass's train stopped at Baltimore, and the next phase of his life began.
Douglass still wasn't safe. He was in Baltimore, which wasn't free at the time. He had escaped the Deep South, but now he needed to head to Pennsylvania. In Baltimore, he met a free black woman that helped him get his disguise and paid for his trip to Pennsylvania. Her name was Anna Marie.
With the education he taught himself and his determination to learn more, Frederick Douglass started attending anti-slavery society conventions all around New Bradford. One day, he went to an annual meeting in Bristol and saw a white man standing out in front of the crowd speaking.
Douglass was astonished because of the unexpected abolitionist. He was surprised at how a white man would go up to the stage and fight for the rights of black people. He went up closer to the stage and paid closer attention to the stage. He discovered that the white man was called William Garrison, a famous abolitionist at the time. Douglass found that he was a brilliant speaker, and his speech inspired him more than any speech had done for him.
After William Garrison stepped down from the stage with scattered applause and the occasional cheer, Douglass stepped up on the stage. He spoke about his own pain and suffering that he had experienced personally as a slave. He spoke about the countless beatings, the cries of younger children, the ugly scars that marked his past whippings and beatings, and he spoke about courage, of lasting all of the pain.
At the end of the speech, the room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Then gradually people stood up and cheers, words of encouragement, and a huge applause was given. Garrison was astounded at the speech, and the two began to meet more often through conventions and stayed in contact. Garrison and Douglass effectively became mentors to each other.
Douglass wanted to change the world by abolishing slavery completely in society ever since struggling with his old, brutal owner, and he finally got a chance to change the world by meeting Garrison. He became a famous abolitionist orator and continued to speak out tirelessly against slavery with Garrison. Also, Douglass continued to talk to Garrison, and Garrison taught him many tools and helped form speeches. However, a few years later, Douglass discovered that his views and Garrison's views were completely different.
Garrison had radical beliefs that denounced everything from religion, voting, and even believed the Constitution was pro-slavery. Douglass's personal views had changed after his tour of Europe and the recent paper he had published. In 1851, in Syracuse, New York, he directly went against Garrison, saying he did not assume the Constitution pro-slavery. Garrison immediately lashed out. This led to bitter fights between the two that lasted until the end of the Civil War, despite family and friends trying to reconcile the two past mentors.
However, during the Reconstruction era, they finally agreed to meet. During their meeting, they agreed that they were fighting for the same cause. They finally reconciled and became a pair that fought for the rights of all people for the rest of their lives.
Douglass remained a constant advocate of removing slavery and also fought for the women's rights. His career in removing slavery had started with Garrison, who had inspired him, and in the middle had them on different bitter paths, but in the end, both became a pair again and were relentlessly fighting for the end of slavery and the rights of all people.